Total time of airplane? Yours is just a baby. I just pretty go for it.
You hear us okay?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it so because I'm at the airport and with the airplanes flying over, I'm just trying to get the noise under control here.
Mute background.
Yeah, just all that stuff. How do I sound?
You sound great.
Okay. I'm wondering how I can share my screen because I'm going to show. Because there's a video in front where I could just share the PowerPoint?
Yeah. I want to make you the host, maybe. How do I make you the host?
Stop coming settings.
All right, you're hosting now.
Got it. Okay. So you guys can see my screen then.
We can't see your screen now. No.
Not yet. Okay, stand by one.
You got to push the share button at the bottom.
Yeah, I see it there.
If we can change our window once he shares it. And whatever, so I moved on. I did school. Found this computer. Or COVID special.
Oh yeah. What brought us the ability to do this? I mean, it kind of existed before WebEx and
Yeah, I lived on this.
Okay, it should work.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we just have,
Okay, cool.
we just have the yeah, here we go. And if you run it in presentation mode, we'll get the full slide. There we go.
Do I want to get rid of Mike's picture? We'll leave it there. Okay.
Awesome.
So do we have a quorum? Do we have a lot of people? Brief me. What do we got?
We got 2 people that are delayed arrival, and we got 2 guys that just walked in, and we got Chase, Matt, me, my son Ben, and my brother Mark. So we got
awesome. Right on.
6
Good morning, guys. How's everyone doing?
Can he see us or?
I cannot.
Okay, good, because if we say something or make a a grimace, if you want to see us,
We can let the laptop see, so we have to have a laptop in the middle maybe and over here.
Let's see here. Let me see if I could
What's this at?
Oh, I got it. Yep, I see you guys.
Oh, it's got it back.
Yep, I see you guys.
So yeah, like we have Derek and Dick. And they
put it over here.
one flew in airlines, the other one flew in yesterday.
Try that.
82.
All right, we're gonna try moving this
That's
again.
awesome. Okay.
Mike, so you can see we got a long cord here.
Nice.
I need to keep the power on. The battery ain't not gonna last on this thing, but
Yeah. I
what?
It was either
You see here. Like you saw on the TV this morning, is like it's late.
All right. Why it's already
right now. It's like,
we aren't seeing your screens. Oh, wait a minute.
You can't see my screen.
Yeah, he just needs to reshift or zoom back.
We're seeing your Zoom screen, Mike.
Yeah, right. How about now? Can you see that?
that's good.
That's good. Yeah, you can see the classroom now.
Cool.
Oh, I think it was 58 or 59. It was perfect. And then you start the descent, and you're like, oh, you still get hit 5 feet south.
All right, Mike. Yeah. Are you ready, Mike?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'll are you guys ready?
Yeah, I'm gonna introduce. I said I'd introduce Mike. So you know what? I pulled up the. Wait a minute. I wanted you guys to get the real deal here. No. Hold on. I took your screen. What the hell just happened? All right. I wanted to. You guys see? This is Mike on the left here. He was going to fly out here, and he and I and Matt and we're recruiting Chase now are sort of the guys that started this, but we wanted to give you Mike's background since he's our Mike had the idea as a long-term season CFI that we would do a flight review for the group that was sort of our TR182 centric, right? Just kind of a great idea. And Mike's a longtime flight instructor, CFII, 787 first officer, fly a Cessna jet, Citation jet, amongst like dozens of other things. And I mean, how many people do you know with a multi-engine instructor seaplane rating?
Is that a Grumman he's sitting in right there?
Is that a Widgeon, Mike?
Let me see here. Of course, I can't see
that
it.
you have on the home on our About Us page.
Yeah, Grumman Widgeon, man, that was a handful of an airplane. I don't know if you guys have any Widgeon time, but those things are sketchy.
Well, narrow gear, right? And the tail wheel is short coupled.
They're just, it's 1940 hydrodynamics. So when you get the airplane on the water, it doesn't steer and it skips and the power's up top. And it's just really, it's when men were men type deal, you know. It's a lot of airplane.
Anyway, I've had the pleasure of flying with Mike, and I mean, we could spend the next 10 minutes on all those qualifications, but we're lucky to have a guy with this background that is super, super bought into our type. He's got, in fact, we connected over the 300 horse. I don't know if you can see this. He chased me down because we both have 300 horse airplane, and that's what sort of was and we were talking like we talk 2-3 times a week about airplane stuff as we're fixing them and maintaining them, and that's sort of the basis of the whole club. So anyway, so Mike had the idea. Let's do you got to share your screen again, Mike. Let's do a flight review, and Mike is the perfect guy to do this because he's got this R182 in his blood. So how's that for introduction, Mike?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good morning. Yeah, you know, I kind of had to pivot a little bit with the whole flight review deal because I didn't fly out there, and so I didn't want to give the ground instruction for the flight review, which I'm legally able to do, and then have Matt maybe finish the flight portion. That would work. However, it just, because my airplane broke, I had an electrical gremlin that came up a couple days ago that I tried. Yeah.
Mike, can I introduce you for 1 second? I forgot. I should have mentioned Matt too. Matt's our other CFI here, who's our R182 guy, and he and Mike are sort of, you know, double teaming. But anyway, Matt's a longtime Cessna guy, committed to our type, and is he built our platform, our online platform. So we got a great team of guys here. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and for all the guys showing up. I know you're passionate about it, which we really admire, because that's what this club seems to have, is a lot of passion, which you don't see very often. And it's just great to see guys like us who are like-minded to keep the airplane alive, because you know, it's just aviation. You know, it's unfortunately, general aviation seems to be dying with the price of parts and fuel, and you know, it's really important we all stay together to pass wisdom and knowledge, and you know, to kind of keep the airplane alive and keep the type alive. But essentially what I've done here is there's a few things I'm going to go over here, but it's essentially mostly surrounded about how I fly my airplane. Now, this is all technique, and some of it's conjecture, and we just kind of bounce things off. And you know, some guys might say, hey, I do it this way, and some guys might say, I do it this way. But in any case, this is how I do it. So it's gonna be a couple slides. We'll kind of go through a few things, and we could talk. We could swap stories and talk about how we do it. But like Scott said, introduction. We're going to go over a general review of the airplane. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but just some small nitty gritty stuff, and then we'll get into the heavier stuff, how I fly my airplane.
Like, do you want to take questions as you go, or do you want to hold them off to the end?
No, we can do it as we go. We have time, so I don't, you know, whatever comes up. Yeah, no problem at all. All right. Who am I? My name is Mike Pattison. I'm from Southern California, cable, SoCal based. Currently owner of serial number 1889. It's the 300 horsepower airplanes conversion. I call it a money pit, and I could tell you all about that, unfortunately. I'm about 16,000 hours, been instructing for about 20 years. I'm, like Scott said, I'm with United on the 7-8, and I instruct actively in my 182, and I have a little Cessna 150J, and I specialize in Mexico, specifically search and rescue stuff lately. I said it twice. Currently owner of serial 1889 Money Pit. Yeah. I'll kind of give you the Cliff Notes version of that. I went on Facebook about 3 years ago, and I said, hey, I'm looking for an R182 to buy. and a guy messaged me on Facebook and said, "Hey, I have a R182 in Miami with some special engine in it. I think it has more power or something." I'm like, okay. I mean, he didn't seem to know much about the airplane. Yeah. So I jump seated out there, and I showed up to the airplane. I was like, "Oh, it's got a 300 horsepower, K1G5 in it. That's kind of cool." And I took a look at it. I sent it to a repair station for a pre-buy, which was unbelievably expensive, and they found some corrosion. The airplane was in annual, so it was legal. An annual in Miami is a little different than my standards here in Southern California, but whatever. So we got the airplane home, and then I did about $80,000 worth of corrosion repairs, and from on the inside, and put some flint tip tanks in it, and just really cleaned the airplane up. Really focused on the landing gear, did all the service bulletins, did all the stuff that we're supposed to do on these airplanes.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, not really important. But how many years was it in Florida?
So this is the thing. So yeah, the airplane sat in Florida on the ground for 10 years.
And didn't
outside.
fly?
Did not fly inside and outside of a hangar. So my biggest thing was, hey, let's borescope the cam, let's borescope the cylinders, yada, 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 right? So of course I call up Lightcom and I say, hey, hypothetically speaking, if there was a K1G5 sitting in Miami on the ramp, what's the chance of corrosion? Of course, they're going to lean super conservative. So they say, oh yeah, you got to freaking, got to tear the engine down and this and that. And remember, the prop is calendared it out. It only had 150 hours on the prop, but it was, 8 years old. The engine had 8 or 9 years on it. The guy bought it. He bought the airplane from a gentleman out of Alabama, flew it to Ohio, one leg, and then flew it to Kansas City where he got the STC done, and then flew it for like 50 hours, then parked it. So it was a brand new engine. But of course it sat. So somehow, some way, the corrosion gods missed us, and or the corrosion devil, I should say, and the engine didn't have any corrosion on the cam. So surprisingly, but one thing on the corrosion on the cylinders is, what'll happen is there'll be some corrosion, then you'll fly it, and then it'll polish the corrosion, so it's really hard to see it, and the only really way I was able to figure out that there was some standing corrosion on the cylinders is because I was having oil consumption. And I'm really particular with oil consumption and leaks. That's my OCD in me. I hate that. So I ended up flying it for like 300 hours, hoping I would wake it up. And it woke it up a little bit, but to kind of get the oil consumption down. But long story short, I ended up pulling the cylinders off and sending them to Lycon, which I did just a top end overhaul and had them port and polished. And so right now I got an engine with the bottom end has about 700 hours on it, and the top end has about 150, 200 hours on it. And oil consumption's down to about 1/4 every 15 hours. And yeah, it's been great. I fly the airplane every single day. I fly it hard, I fly it heavy, I fly it fast, I fly it how it's designed. So it hasn't let me down. There's been certain gremlins here and there, like this last one with the electrical, which is me and Chase talked about. Those are nightmares. You can't track them down. But yeah. So oops, let me go back.
Explain. Mike was going to fly out here, but he ran into this electrical system thing. Just talk about it for a minute, Mike, so everybody knows what you mean.
Yeah. So what's been happening is the airplane, there's no rhyme or reason. There's no way it won't, if it's hot, if it's cold, if it's loaded up, if it's not loaded up, if there's avionics on, if there isn't avionics. But essentially what will happen is the alternator will fall offline mid-flight, and then I'll have to reset it. And it'll come back online usually. But yeah, so it just falls offline. So I've replaced the voltage regulator, I've replaced the alternator, the battery contactor, the field wire, the field circuit breaker. We've done continuity tests. We've done all sorts of stuff. So there's somewhere in there, there's a bad ground. We of course, electrical systems are fun to track down, but yeah, so it's been fun. So, but anyhow, So yeah, I got the airplane back west. It has the K1G5, 300 horsepower. I used to usually see around 160, 165 knots true on the airplane at 15 to 17 reach a peak. That's how I fly the airplane. I have nothing against Lena Peak. I always fly the airplane to Richard Peak just because I want to get there fast. And then I got the Flint tip tank, so I got about 120 gallons total, and I could fly the airplane for about the longest leg I've ever done is 8.5 hours. So you can, if you get on the backside of the peak, you can really get some legs out of it. So the longest I've done is SoCal down to Guadalajara, which is about 1,200 nautical miles. So it has legs if you really want to do it. So
what year is your airplane?
82, serial number 1889.
Oh, 82. There, I was looking at the data. I should have looked up. Okay, yeah. All right, so that the Flint tip tanks. Where's that STC from? I mean, is that something that's common?
Yeah, Flint in El Cajon, California holds the STC for that install. Yep, and it's 20. It has 24 gallons total, and there's really no limitations. There's a limitation in the AFN or the supplement that says anytime the airplane's above 18,000 feet, you have to decrease the V&E by 5 knots. But other than that, it's all there. There's no landing limitation. There's no type of limitations. And, the airplane's got so much power, it has no problem, climbing down stuff. That's why, so.
And I would guess that STC is for post 79 and later with the regular tanks and not the bladder tanks.
That's a really good question. I don't know. I've never seen, I call it a Gen 1 R182. I've never seen a Gen 1 with them, so I couldn't tell you. I've only seen the Gen 2s, so I don't know. That's a really good question.
We're looking it up right now.
So was yours a 78?
Mine is 78.
So you got bladders?
I do.
Okay.
Chase is looking right now. Explain Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Mike, so people know what that is.
Yeah, we've kind of came up with that. So the Gen 1 is anywhere from the late 77 up to late 79. That's the Gen 1 with the bladder tanks, the gear pivots, or the steel gear pivots. There's some other differences, and we'll talk about it a little bit. And then the Gen 2 is 80 to 80. If you really want to get into it, 80 to 83. I call that the Gen 2. That's my airplane. And then the Gen 3 is 83 to 86, which is there's some slight differences there too. So
it goes all the way back to the straight 182, 56 straight 182.
Yeah, we just learned that the Flint tanks are eligible for the Gen 1 airplanes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would put Flint temp tanks if I didn't have my 300 horsepower STC. I really like an abundant amount of power. If I'm really heavy and I got full fuel and I got 4 guys and I'm at Radamex or Suede, it has no problem doing it. It's just I want a little more extra power. And I call my airplane a mini 210. I like the 4 seats because it saves me on insurance, and 80% of the time I'm looking behind me and I see the seats empty. So why not, right?
Yeah.
So
those extra 2 seats cost a lot of money, is what you're saying, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or as the local 210 guy, you just take them out. Mine's insured as a 4-seater.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool. I didn't know you could do that. Great. Yeah.
If I wanted if I wanted 6 seats at my whole value, they put me $10,800. For 4 seats at my whole value, they said $5,200.
So you never put more than 4 people in?
I have 5 seats in it to hold shit.
Okay.
I never put more than 4 people in it.
Okay.
Yeah, I instructed a guy's P210, a 79 P210, a beautiful airplane, and I was on board the airplane when it crashed, but we crashed the airplane in Mexico, and that's a story I can tell you about over a couple of beers or something. But I fly down to San Diego a lot, and it's a great airplane if you're up high, but if you're down low and you're sipping 20 gallons an hour and you're going 170 knots, it's just, or 22 gallons an hour, it really likes to have the fuel on. So. All these airplanes have a mission. My airplane for me is perfect. I wish it was there's probably two things, there's a couple things, but I wish it was slightly faster. Of course, that's always how it is. Right. And then I wish the tires were a little bigger for the unimproved stuff that I do. And we could talk about that. Yeah, I think everyone has that complaint. It makes for kind of a hard ride too. Like this airport that I'm based at, Cable, has these big cracks in the taxiway, and it's like a roller skate wheel, just boom, boom, and it's versus the 210, which the wheel is almost 50% bigger. So, but anyhow, so that's my airplane.
Yeah, does it also have the VG kit on? It looks like it does.
So it did. My biggest thing was I wanted speed, and I think that was another thing that I was trying to kind of diagnose on how fast this airplane actually should be. I've flown when I flew this airplane back from Miami. I actually landed, and I said, "God, this airplane's really slow. I would figure it'd be faster, and." I'm like, well, maybe it's the VGs, and you always hear that. There's always that rumor. It's like, does it actually slow the airplane down? Does it actually speed it up? And this, that, and the other. And I got the airplane home, and I was like, I'm gonna really troubleshoot, because airplane says the airplane will do 165 all day long. They say the airplane book numbers all day long. The fastest I've ever seen this airplane go is 162, 163. Scott's airplane it flies very well. And it's a really fast airplane, but so I'm able to compare almost apples to apples, slightly different. But I've gone through the rigging, I've gone through the eccentric cams, I've gone through the shims on the engine mount, I've gone through everything, calibration of the true airspeed, the GPS, is the prop on speed. Just to see exactly how fast the airplane, or to get as much speed as I can out of it. And I think it's just a slow airframe. There'll be airplanes that serial numbers one after another, and it's just one flies better than the other. And I think this airplane just, I'm a big fan of high timed airplanes, and I think this airplane is just a slower airplane. I think, I don't see, it's not a slippery bird. Scott's airplane's very fast. Mine isn't. So, but if what 5 knots over,
I don't, but when you took the VGs off, Mike, what changed?
Like 2 knots. But
what about low speed?
Yeah, it helps with the low speed, but if you fly the airplane right and you have good airmanship, it's kind of like, it's kind of masking, right. Another thing is I don't want to be in the field and have one of those things rip off by a fueler and then be AOG somewhere because I can't defer them, and it's just things like that. It's like, I really don't need them. I actually took them off and I put them in a bag, and then did a 337 to get it back to where it needed to be, and that was it. And but yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. Some guys like them, some guys don't. People always ask me that. It does create drag. If it didn't create drag, you wouldn't have to glue them on, right? So it does. But some guys say it speeds the airplane up. I really don't know. I saw 2 knots. Is it a big deal? Probably not. So,
yeah, and maybe Scott, you might know this more, but on the Cardinals, they had a different wing design from 68 to later on. Are the 182s, the R182s, all the same wing design? Do we know that, or
they're all the same. They're all the same. Different wing than the Cardinal.
Okay, yeah, because the 68 had the thin wing on it. They called it a faster one, but I didn't really think that was true. But
yeah, no. This is the stock.
Yeah,
this is a 182 wing that's been used on all 182.
On all, okay,
yeah.
Okay.
You can take.
Yeah, I think it's
like. I just did a pre-buy on a 83 fixed gear 182R. And it still had jack patch screw holes. It's the same wing.
Same wing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Both Matt, that's for you guys know. Both Matt and I had straight legs as well. 182. So we're sort of at that point of reference. But yeah.
They changed the leading edge profile in 68. But from then on, all strutted Cessnas is the same way.
And even for the production airplanes today, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now that Cardinal wing is like your 210 is what they
It's
modeled it off.
totally different wing.
Yeah.
Strutless versus strutted. Yeah. High altitude optimized versus high lift optimized.
Can't believe it.
Got an airplane taking off. Give me 1 second. Hopefully it's not too loud.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I remember when we were going through the thing with your VGs. I think that your airplane is a good short field airplane without the VGs. If you fly it right and like you use 40 degrees of flaps, and I don't like to me, the VGs aren't, for the hassle of putting them on, are not worth the pain and lose 2 knots, in my opinion.
Yeah. It for me, this airplane is configured almost perfect. There's a few things that I would be like, all right, but and we could talk about that. But no, for me, it's been great. So. Okay, we kind of talked about that earlier about the general description. The start, some guys say late 77. Some of the books says 78. It's serial number 0002 is the very first one. Ending in 86 is the R182, serial number 2039. Like we talked about, the Gen 1 serial number 1313 and older, many differences, but major are landing gear pivots, steel, bladder tanks, engine cowling, and battery location. The Gen 1, there's if you got in the service manual, and Chase can compliment, well, everyone can compliment this, but yeah, there's also, all sorts of different small little differences here and there. Gen 2, wet tanks, flaps, battery, and gear pivots. I wish I had an 83 up. Standby one's bonanza's flying over. Hang on one second.
So the gear pivots are aluminum instead of steel, and they're a little bit different design because it's different. What's different with the flaps, Mike, in Gen 2?
Say again?
What's different with the flaps in the Gen 2?
Oh, the Gen 2, because you have 40 degrees flaps, right?
Say that. I have what flaps?
Yeah. So you have 40 degrees of flaps in your airplane, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think I got 40. I only got 30. I think so.
Oh, you only got 30. Okay.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, they did. I actually, we can talk about it later. I'm not a fan of flaps 40. You love it. I don't like it. So go ahead.
Sure. Later serial number Gen 2's 83 up. I'm a big fan of this because I could definitely take advantage of this. VFE flaps 20 speed increases because of the flap tracks where they mount onto the back of the fuel tank because they were cracking. So the way I fly my airplane, I go VFE flaps 20 minus 10 to keep that from happening because I don't want to break the PRC in the tank and open a nightmare of a maintenance issue and call Chase up.
At least 10, maybe 20, Mike.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'm trying to fly the airplane as fast. It's a balance, right? Like you want to fly, I don't want to be dragging it into the pattern doing, 90 knots. So it's like,
understood.
Yeah. So, and then different rear vents, and then the rear seat belts and the pump run light. 83 up's got the hydraulic power pack run light that comes on if it's ever on board or on. Scott has his. He did a field approval where his light is on when the pump runs, which is awesome. I want to do that to mine too. So,
hey, along those lines, Mike, Chase showed up in this airplane he built. He's got on his engine monitor screen, he's got a pickup from the reservoir access port. He's got hydraulic system pressure number. He knows what it says 1500 on his pressure. He knows. You guys see this?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm dying for that. That's what I'm going to do next.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
really cool.
Well, I'd like to have 3 lights too.
Well, we'd all like to have 3 lights.
And just a little bit of trivia. Serial number 001. When I was in the market to buy a 182, a guy out in New Jersey, because I just sent out a message, the guy in New Jersey contacted me back, and he said, "Well, I've got serial 001, but that it was held by Cessna at the plant for the succeeding years because every modification they did, up to the Gen 1 and I don't know if they got to Gen 2 on it, they did to that airplane." And then and they made it experimental for that entire period. They had it at the Cessna plant. And then when they got done with all the modifications, they put it back in the certificated category, and he ended up buying it. So he had a 78, but when he talked about it, and it had all the features of a new airplane except for the bladder tanks. And then, but that is serial number 001. He's a doctor out in New Jersey, and he was selling it. I was looking for a later model 182, but yeah, that's what happened with 001.
Interesting.
So it was kept as experimental for 4 or 5 years at the plant with all the mods, and then they certificated and sold it.
Interesting.
So he just happened to fly into my airport because I've talked to him face to face and looked at that airplane.
Oh, really?
Seems like a pretty good guy.
Cool airplane. I wouldn't own it.
That's cool.
I wouldn't own it because it would be a bastard child for parts.
Oh,
because you don't know what to order. It's the 78 with aluminum pivots and the upgraded main gear actuators and wet wing tanks and 80,
Good point.
82,
So
82 cabin vent system, 84 electrical system. It is a absolute.
So you used a lot of service, what ability to use, right?
I mean, it's the same service, man. You just don't know what parts to order. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool
Geez.
story, but
Yeah, that is cool.
As an owner.
All right. Any questions on that, guys? Any?
No, this is great. This is great live, Mike. Well done.
Well, I tried to hammer it out really quickly, but the problem is I was dealing with that. I was trying to get the airplane back here, so I was running out. So hopefully I got some good stuff for you guys.
Next year.
Yeah. So this is actually my airplane off of Airplane's website. You can, I don't know if you can see in the background, but it's the same paint scheme. Kind of.
Yeah, that's your airplane. Their site.
Yeah, that's it. That was when the guy bought it. He sent it to Airplanes, and that was the picture that when they did the install and they put it on the website. So it's just a coincidence, but I was on their website like, oh, it's my airplane. So, but yeah, two engine STCs. I guess there used to be 3. Was it Texas Air Mods or something out of Texas? I guess the guy passed away. Do you Chase or Scott? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. What my understanding is it was Aerospace Labs or something out somewhere in Texas, and that was the 260 horse STC that was developed originally. The airplanes bought.
Oh,
maybe from the guy's wife. I don't know what, but that's what started the airplanes conversion on our type. And then airplanes did the 300 horse. They did that separately based on 260 horse data. In other words, you can't. That other STC is no longer available. That airplane we saw down in Alabama that was flying fish spotting, that had the original aerospace lab from Texas STC document part of it. And I asked Raphael about that. He said, "Oh yeah, we bought that. That's what started us." He can tell us about that tomorrow. He's on at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So yeah, the K1G5 and then the AF1A5. I've never seen an A1A5 in the field. I know Scott's talked to a few guys, and I think there's some. Is there anyone today that has that's here, or is that just?
There's a guy coming from Iowa who's delayed. Mike Myers is supposed, and his airplane was upgraded like I want to say last year, the year before. It's a recent conversion.
Nice.
So it'll be good to see. Yeah. Look forward to seeing.
Yeah, that's great. So how I fly my airplane. So storing, and again, this is just me. So, and this is just how I've developed fly my airplane and how I use it. And everyone has different ways of doing things. So, it's open to discussion, but, storing the airplane, of course, in a hangar if possible. If it's not in a hangar, snubbed up, pitot cover on, flight control locks in, double chalked, into the wind, cowl flaps closed. No tow sign. And the question mark is because some guys will put that on, some guys don't. Scott, he puts the sign up. I don't do that. I have it so they don't even have to move the airplane if I have a line tech, just because I don't want them touching my airplane. I've had so many times where I used to manage a Meridian and they backed it into a hangar wall, and of course they denied it, and so I had to deal with that. So it's like I don't even let them deal with it. Say, hey, where do you want the airplane? I'll stick it wherever you want, and I'll and just that's how I do that. So I'm a big fan of flight controls. I know flight controls being locked. I was out in Banning the other day, like last month, and I land in Banning. I noticed an R182 with the flight control not locked. I'm like, dude, what the heck? I see the flight controls banging around. So thankfully the guy left the airplane open, so I put it in there. And I'm like, it's just keeping that nice and tight. And then, of course, into the wind, the cowl flaps closed. Block heater on at all times, Mike, good and bad. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, as far as the no tow sign, is that because of the limitation on turning of the nose gear with 30 degrees, whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
not because the gear can't take it, but there's a limitation on
the gear can't take it, it'll break.
Yeah, it'll break that. Yeah, and it's 29 degrees. Go ahead.
Go, Mike.
Yeah, I was saying the maintenance manual and the POH, talks about it's 29 degrees left or right. And yeah, you could break that. Chase, what would that collar, is that what it would be technically, that collar on the Olean strut?
The collar is your steering limit, and there's very little engagement between the collar and the upper trunnion. I've seen the forward snout of the upper trunnion be sheared off, and that's about a $25,000 part. I've seen if that doesn't break, or if that does break and they go past it, then I've seen the horn be broken off the rotor pedal bar. I've seen where your nose wheel steering links to your rotor pedals, and then it's like a $1,000 part. Which, in talking about these big dollar signs, that's much less. But it's about 30 man hours of labor because you have to remove the entire rudder system.
Oh my gosh.
So the POH says to only move the airplane with tow bar. And I'm militant about it because my brother's at airplane with nose gear with damaged last year, and then you didn't realize it until like a week or two later, and it's too late. And I've, similar to Mike, the line crew's not going to admit it. So I put signs all over mine. I leave a tow bar on it. Do not move this airplane without calling me. And I try to park it, like Mike said, in a place where nobody, like in the back corner of the hangar, don't move. Nobody fesses it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if they hook it up to a tow bar with a tug.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see you'll see on my airplane, I have stops painted, but you can't see that from a tug. It's tucked up underneath there. Nobody can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put a stripe on my collar and the cylinder there so that I know if something's happened.
Yeah. This is all over the website. If you search on this, I'm defensive parking is what I mean, it's a whole list of things.
But also, if you're a home FP, like if you're in a community hangar at home, if they use a newer style tug that scoops the nose wheel with a lazy Susan, that's fine because you can't hurt it with a lazy Susan. But if it's a pan style tug that scoops the nose wheel without a lazy Susan, the same thing applies because then the nose wheel steering has to turn, and you can jack one around real quick with that style tug and tear some stuff up. And then a tow bar is even worse, especially if they're pushing it backwards. Like if you have a hitch on the front of a golf cart pushing an airplane with a tow bar, I'll do it because I stay current with it pushing F-35s around in the Air Force because we have to push them for miles backwards. I stay very current doing stuff like that. If it's something you do once in a while, and especially something you do once in a while with little airplanes, if you're used to pushing airliners at a busy airport and then you have to go push a Cessna, the longer coupled the gear is, the much easier it is to tow. So when you go from an ERJ 175 to a 182, you can mess one of those up quick.
Okay.
So if you know your home line guys and they have a lazy Susan tug, that's permissible.
Yeah.
But preferred is you doing it yourself without hurting it.
Yeah, at home now, at my hangar, it's a little bit older, so it's a little bit of a downhill when you're coming out, so I have an electric tug. And I hook to the nose gear and then roll it back, and I've even taken a concrete grinder and grind down the front of the hangar to get rid of the lip, just so it can get on up and in there. But there's a little bit of force on that nose gear because I am taking it uphill. Get up that lip into
pushing the airplane backwards, you're actually pushing the nose gear into the locks. So I wouldn't be worried about it. But you're the owner. You're conscious of it. You're conscious of the steering limits, and you're essentially doing hand power because if you could do that by hand, you could push the airplane in by hand if you had to. You're not with a 7,000 pound tug pulling a 2,000 pound airplane.
But a lot of torque.
That's where you really get into danger.
Okay.
But those new best tugs are really nice because they lift the whole, but they're expensive too. They're like $5 grand.
But
I've got
the
so
rotisserie though, are they? The best
tugs? You can get a lazy Susan pan for the best tugs. But I've got a best tug, an Alpha 3. It doesn't pick the nose gear up. It locks onto it just like you're talking about. It's just a fancier version of the same electric tug you have. But the nice thing about the best tug is it has slow start. So they actively torque monitor the engine, the motor inside it, so you don't overload the gear pushing or pulling. It's got 2 speeds. It's fancy.
Yeah.
It's also expensive. But we bought it because pushing a 210 with 90 gallons is kind of hard.
Yeah, but I probably need to get that no coast. I have flown my plane to work from Missouri down to Georgia, the coast there, and left it on the ramp. And
I'll show you my signs when we get to the hangar.
yeah, so
Remind me.
I probably need to do that,
Yeah.
just to hang it on the front of it, so. And like you say, tell the line guys, tell me where you wanna park and that's what's gonna stay on the tie now.
And if you have to move it, you call me. My name and number is on the sign.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks, Mike, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds all right. I mean, yeah, that's it. I completely agree with that. All that stuff. That's good stuff. Block heater. So, there's goods and bads with this. I've heard of guys. So this is my thing. I like to be able to pull the airplane out and go. Right. So I know it sounds, for the guys living back east, when the airplane's been sitting in a cold hangar for for a week and the engine is 42 degrees Fahrenheit and it takes 10-15 minutes for the engine to warm up. I guess might use it more often than not, but yeah, over here in Southern California, what I'll do is I'll have it, if it's gonna be a cold morning, I have it on a Bluetooth timer where I can turn it on like the night prior, so when I get to the airplane or get to the hangar, I can pull it out and it's ready to go. Some guys say they don't like keeping it on all the time because it draws the moisture out of the oil and then it condenses and it sits in the block and then creates corrosion. I fly my airplane so much, I don't really worry about that. I know I've heard of guys, what they'll do is, and it's kind of a lot, but you can hook the block heater up so the engine's warm all the time. And I know someone makes it where it draws the moisture out of the exhaust. I don't know. Scott, have you heard of that? Right, where they draw
the dehydrator. That's
dehydrator. Yeah,
that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I fly my airplane so much, I don't really care. The biggest thing with these airplanes, as everyone knows, you got to fly them. You just have to. If you fly them every day, the airplanes. That just keeps the airplane happy. So, that's how I do that. I run a Concorde battery. I don't do a battery tender every day. Concorde says that might produce corrosion in the battery. I fly my airplane so much that it's really never an issue, but I'll throw it on a tender usually once a week to kind of, where it goes through the process where there's a
desulfate.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just do that. Stand by once an airplane taking off.
Yeah, I guess that's, point of discussion, I leave mine plugged in all the time, because I talked to the guy that sold the tender. I think he gave me the lead on that. He said, yeah, you can leave it plugged in all the time.
You can, but I take Concorde's guidance on this, and they have a technical bulletin on it, posted on the site, and essentially they say it's okay to use a battery monitor, but it's like every 10 or 12 weeks to top it off. They don't monitor them that.
If you fly once a week, then you don't need to do it.
Exactly right. If you fly
Unlike
you don't need
like Mike.
that's the technical set. But my brother, on the other hand, he's got it set up like Mike. Before he comes out and cranks, he remotely turns on his charger and tops the battery off this before he goes. That arguably that keeps it healthy too. So everybody's got their own point of view, but I think following technical.
I would tend to agree. So the airplane that I flew in is not mine. As a customer's, it's a really good friend of mine. And you'll see in my slides, we had to take it apart here in Michigan and trailer it back to Georgia. And that was about a little over a year rebuild process on that one. And the entire time we had it on a battery minder, we got ready to fly the airplane, the battery was completely gone.
How old was it?
1 year.
Wow.
It was
Rest my case.
It was 2 months old when he was 2 months old when he had his accident. And
wow,
after the rebuild process, being on the battery minder the entire time, that was
I need to get mine off. And my API says the same thing. He says the 28-volt batteries, you don't need to leave it on there the entire time. It's like, that's why I read you could do it. So
I ran one constantly on my straight leg 182. There's a 12-volt airplane.
Yeah.
And every day for 4.5 years and never had a problem out of it.
It was 12-volt.
Right.
Yeah.
I have one on my 210, and before it killed his battery, I ran mine all the time, every day. But after it killed his battery, I got to researching and found the service bulletin that Concorde came out with. Both of us, my customer, my number one customer, and my airplane, we run the same battery. We both have battery minder plug-in ports. We both only use them about once every 2 months just to desulfate the battery for maintenance purposes. It's not something. And with the cost of these batteries, I'm going to do whatever Concord says will make it last longer.
Okay.
So along those lines, you guys should know, I'll do a little plug here. Concord Battery has been a great supporter of our group. Their rep, Chris Holder, has been great with us. We can talk about capacity testing later. I've got a tester that you guys are welcome to use. But we're giving away a free battery tomorrow at the cookout, yo. All right, so it's worth hanging around. That's $1,000, fellas.
I had the same thing.
Yeah, thank you, Concord. Appreciate it.
Yeah. The Concord guys are great. He was supposed to be here tomorrow. His Chevy Suburban engine pooped like 3 days, end of last week, and then he had all these business conflicts. He couldn't make it. But anyway, great. They're very. Just so you guys know, they are great supporters of our group. Yeah, we should try to support them as well.
Yeah, and then so that sounds like we're all kind of in agreement with that. It's the Concord, they did that presentation and they answered a lot of great questions. They talked about it'll pass a capacity check, like they've had batteries 6 or 7, 8 years. And it'll pass a capacity check, but it won't last. Remember, Scott, they're talking about the IFR flight where it's, it'll fall offline after 20 minutes, you know what I mean? And it'll
exactly.
well. Yeah.
And you guys, if you look on the site under events, we had a Zoom call with the Concord rep. He goes through all the tech bulletins, all the procedural stuff. It's a 45-minute Zoom call. It's worth watching every minute of it.
It's on the main site, not the forums, but under resources.
Okay. It's very worthwhile. It answers all of your questions. If nobody wants to watch a long video, I know, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. So regards to oil, I know this is like everyone's opinion, right? Like, what do they run? How do they do it? This is how I run it. I run 6 quarts. I run W100. I change the oil every 35 hours with the filter. I hate oil blowing on the belly of the airplane. I don't have an oil air separator on my engine, so I just run the OEM setup where it's just, it's got the breather coming down on the belly of the airplane. And it keeps it pretty happy. I usually burn about, like I mentioned, like 1 quart every 15 hours, somewhere in there. Cam guard, it seemed to be super, not trendy, but it seems like everyone's running it. When I first put my cylinders on my airplane, I ran mineral oil, of course, to break the cylinders in. And I called the guys up at Lycon. I said, "Hey man, I'm still having oil consumption." They said, "Well, what are you running?" I said, "Well, I'm running W100. He's like, "You're running with cam guard?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, you got to get rid of that stuff because it actually, it glazes the cylinders and it won't make the cross hatches on the cylinders actually break in the rings." And so they told Lycon is a really big fan of AvBlend. And so I'll run that usually every other oil change. I don't run cam guard anymore because I fly the airplane enough. Cam guard seems to be where if guys aren't flying the airplane and it sits, which most operators are like that, they'll run cam guard, but I fly the airplane literally every single day. So I could probably run 100 weight in this engine and it'd probably be fine. But either way, it's, I just keep the oil as clean as I possibly can. I run it every 35 hours, like clockwork, and I run a Champion oil filter and I run W100, and it seems fine with me. So that's just me. So, yeah. Don't forget the finger screen when you're cleaning that, when you're changing the oil and then raising the nose. As per the maintenance manual talks about that, to get removing all the oil out of the engine. I'm a big fan of keeping the airplane clean because then you can see leaks, right? Use mineral spirits per part 43, just general repair methods to make sure it's done correctly. I mean, some guys use 100 low lead to clean the airplane, but do it right and try to use mineral spirits and just kind of keep their engine clean. A clean engine is a safe engine because you can see what you're working with, So, yeah. Scott, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I got a comment, but go ahead.
Yeah, what's the finger screen? I'm not familiar with it. I mean,
so on all Lycoming,
go for it, Chase.
On all Lycoming, you have either a pressure screen or a filter on the back of the accessory case. On the bottom of the oil sump, you also have a suction screen, which is the pickup for the oil pump.
okay.
For the Lycoming service bulletin on how to change your oil, you're supposed to pull it every oil change. Most mechanics are not going to do that. Most airplanes, it's an absolute pain in the neck to get to, including a stock R182. It's right behind the engine mount. I don't know how I think the 300 horses are a lot easier to get to.
They are. I'll show you.
It's really easy. Yeah.
I haven't done, I just changed the oil with, the quick drain on it and on the filter and call it good. I mean,
On a stock motor, R182, as much as I would like to see you pull the suction screen every oil change, and less what I'm about to say applies to you, it's such a pain in the neck. And you need safety wire on it because it's a copper crush gasket that came back off. And you have to be skilled at safety wire to get that thing safety wired.
I do that just so you know.
Because it's on the stock 182, it's right behind the engine mount. The suction screen's here, the main engine mount tube runs right here. It's a pain in the neck. Okay. But if your engine was overhauled, if it was factory new from Lycoming or overhauled with Lycoming parts between 2007 and 2023, you don't get a choice because they just come out with the Lycoming wrist pin AD. If it has a Lycoming part number wrist pin in it, or was a factory motor between 2007 and 2023,
yep,
you have to pull the filter, cut the filter open, and pull the suction screen every oil change now.
And document it in the logbook.
And document that the AD was complied with in the logbook.
Okay.
I take pictures of the filter element and I put them in an archive by date. So you got a point of reference.
Well, that's not the one that just came out, right? Not a recent one, but when I ran the serial numbers, that my engine didn't apply, but it was overall in, I think 21. No.
So if it was
15, I think it's 15.
factory motor,
Yeah, it's like yeah.
I'm saying, was it?
I don't know.
So
I don't know.
You have to get your logbooks because you got options when it comes to overhauling an engine.
Yeah.
Factory new, the AD applies. Factory rebuilt, factory reman, rebuilt, whatever you want to use as a term, the AD applies. Overhauled by a third-party shop with Lycoming rod bushings, the AD applies. Overhauled by a third-party shop with superior rod bushings, the AD does not apply. You have to get into your overhaul paperwork and figure out what part.
I better check that then.
We have a Zoom call on the site that goes all through this with a Poplar Grove Aeromotives head of disassembly.
Okay.
Goes through the AD, goes how to explain the whole thing.
Well, that was before the new AD came out.
Yeah, I think it was before.
Yeah, the new AD just came out in March.
Oh, okay, that was like a year ago.
That's the one that my A and EIA, we went over it together with the serial numbers and my engine didn't apply to it.
That serial number list is only factory engines.
Okay.
If it was overhauled by a third party and they use Lycoming rod bushings, the AD still applies. The airplane I flew in, it was overhauled in 2018 by Tim's Aircraft in California. Because it's a former California bird. And so it's got the original 1978 serial number. The serial number is nowhere in that AD, but the AD applies because they use Lycoming OEM rod.
About parts, the bill of material type parts.
Right. So if your connecting rods were bad and they ordered new rods from the factory, they came with the wrist pin bushings already in it, so the AD applies.
Okay.
You have to change your wrist pin. So if your rods were good and they change the wrist pin bushings, if they use superior, the AD doesn't apply. If they use Lycoming, it does.
And if you replace the Lycoming wrist pin bushings with Lycoming will pay for the labor or most of the labor, not all the labor, and for the new bushings.
Only if it's a factory new motor.
But now I was at Lycoming a month ago and asked them that, and you can get them to go a little broader if you make a case.
Okay.
I
gotta check that then.
So the AD requires you legally have to change your oil at least every 50 hours. They rewrote it. The first time it came out, you had to do it every 4 months. But they took that stipulation away. The first oil change after the AD came out in April had to be at least done within 4 months. So that's here coming up in August. But so you have to change your oil every 50 hours. When you change your oil, you have to pull the filter, cut the filter open, pull the suction screen.
They've always got the filter open.
You'd be amazed how many owners don't. If you don't find brass, you sign off the AD inspection complied with, and a pilot can sign off the inspection of the AD because a pilot's allowed to change your oil. If you find brass, the AD wants you to pull all 6 cylinders off of it. But it does give you a stipulation that if you can prove that it did not come from the connecting rod bushing, you don't have to pull the cylinders. So it's very easy. If you find brass, send it to AvLab, and they scan it with a scanning electron microscope and can tell you exactly what AMS number brass it is. We just went through this with the airplane I flew in. We had a filter full of brass. Sent it to AvLab. They said it's AMS blah blah blah. Called Lycoming, and I said, "Is this the wristband bushing coming apart?" He said, "Do you have the old style that the AD applies to?" I said, "Yes, I've confirmed that." He said, "Well, then it's physically impossible for that to be the wristband bushing because they're made out of two different metals." He said, "In your engine, the only bushing that's made out of that AMS besides the rod bushing, if you have the new style rod bushing, is the rocker arm."
I was gonna say it's gotta be right.
Well, there's some bushings in the accessory case, but they're made out of a different AMS as well.
Okay.
We pulled all the rocker arms off, and all 24 of them had galled bushings. Some I got rebushed, put them back on. Next oil change, no brass.
Two other comments on Mike's bullet up there. One is, in my opinion, 50 hours that Lycoming says an oil change interval is too long.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's what they say. They're in the business of selling you another.
I change mine every 30.
Well,
I mean, that's.
people have their, I think 25 to 35 is what people is best practice. That actually we're working on a best practice list. And the other thing is the single viscosity oil after the 100 that Mike is running, in my opinion, is the best choice for our engines with an overhead cam, because it's run down rate. It's thicker. It's more like molasses. It'll hang up on your cam lobes longer than a than a 2050 will, which is thinner and runs down quicker. Just no data on that, just my opinion.
Okay, if you're flying regularly though,
Then it doesn't
then you want to sing away.
But right, that's true. But if your airplane has to sit for a few weeks, you got sick or something, the advantage of the single viscosity is it protects you more.
Upper Grove is 20W50, right? That's
So we can't all
I think depends on the time of year.
we can't all share the same opinion. I'll be the dissenting opinion. I think 50 hours is fine. I've run oil analysis and paid for the TAN and the TBN and TAN testing. The oil is still plenty. Got plenty of lubrication left in it at 50 hours.
The swamp hurt. They're always bunked up and dirty and all that kind of stuff.
Well, if your engine uses a lot of oil, you're steadily dumping oil in it, and that's renewing the additive package.
This thing 50 hours is a long time.
Yeah, the maintenance manual even says, I think the maintenance manual, because they call it a blue streak 054, they say every 100 hours. I mean, that's 1988, 1979 technology. But, oh yeah, and its main manual says 100 hours. Yep.
Lycoming and Continental both say you can run a 100-hour oil change if you run a big can filter. Which I don't agree with that, but I run my engine, my customer runs his engine 50 hours. As far as oils go, there's 3 oils you should use depending on temperature: W80, W100, and Phillips 2050 XC.
Yeah, that's
So
I use.
don't run Victory, don't run 80 or 100 plus, and don't run 1550.
Why not the plus?
So plus has got unless you have a Lycoming engine that has to have plus per the AD, the anti-friction additive in plus, if you run it for a couple hours, stick it in a hanger, you have just created a chemical reaction machine. If you pour it in there and never run it, it's fine. So when you put blow by in the oil that's full of lead and moisture, the lead, the moisture, and that tricrystal phosphate additive will do a chemical reaction and turn into phosphoric acid and start acid etching all the hard parts in the motor. If you run it hard and keep the moisture out of it, it will be okay. I just don't like running the risk of that possibly happening. And never run 1550. These are huge motors. The R182 is just like the Cirrus. The Cirrus is a 550 cubic inch engine with an 8-quart sump. The R182 is a 540 cubic inch engine with an 8-quart sump. 1550 is half dead dinosaurs and half synthetic. Dead dinosaurs is the only thing that can hold on to lead. Once we go to an unleaded fuel, 1550 will be the best oil out there.
Yeah.
But when we're still running leaded fuel, synthetic oil cannot hold on to lead. And so if you run 1550, you've only got, if you fill it all the way up, you only got 4 quarts of dead dinosaurs in there. If you run it at 6, you've only got 3 quarts of dead dinosaurs to hold the lead and suspension from the blow by of a 540 cubic inch engine. So the Sears guys have run into this multiple times with people that are just obsessed with 1550. You've got however much oil is in the motor, half of that is what's actually trying to hold on to the lead and keep it in suspension. So when you drain it, it leaves. Well, it can't. The half that's in there will get full of lead and it just can't hold on to it anymore. And lead will precipitate out and start clogging up your oil passages. So once we go to an unleaded fuel, 1550 will be the best because it's half synthetic, it's the best lubricant. But running leaded fuel, never run 1550. If you have a straight leg 182 with a 470, much smaller cubic inch engine with 12 quarts, that ratio, you may get the numbers to work out. But a huge motor with a tiny sump, you don't want to run 1550 because you'll have lead precipitating out the oil passages.
But I think all of us are 540 engines, right?
Right, they're all 540s of some flavor,
Yeah,
but they all have 8-quart sumps,
right.
which you would normally find an 8-quart sump on a 360. If this 540 in a Comanche is going to have a 10-quart sump, and in a what's the bigger Piper? In a Cherokee 6 is going to have a 12-quart sump.
Yeah.
They just had to put a tiny sump on these engines to get the nose gear to fit.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, when it comes down, you just got to fly the airplane. I mean, the airplane sitting is the worst thing for it, as we all know. You just got to fly it. I mean, some of these flight school airplanes with these IO 320s or 36, is that 320 or 360 in the 172? 360, right?
360, yeah.
360s.
360. I mean, those things.
Both
The older ones did.
Yeah, but like these new IO 360 Cessna 172, these R's, I mean, those things fly 6, 7 hours, 8 hours a day, and they just keep going and going and going. You just got to fly, So
incredible.
So the power pack completely topped off. That's a Chase thing, and we've kind of adopted that. I would always run it like kind of right above the ad line, but me and Scott, we've kind of adopted having it completely topped off. And I actually, because I didn't want to do it per the service manual or per the maintenance manual and actually do it, bleed all the hydraulic fluid out of the system. I just essentially took and me and Scott did this. We took a syringe and just out of the power pack, maybe it got maybe 30% of it out or whatever, or however much the quantity of the whole hydraulic system. But we essentially
Is that how you guys threw that up? Just a syringe it?
Well, that's what we did. It was.
Not the best way to do it, but yeah.
Yeah, it worked, but I got to tell you, it's pretty shocking. And I think Chase saw some of my pictures online about how, it's like, whoa, it's really dirty, And I don't think I would assume from my maintenance logs, it looked like the last time that was done was back in like 99 when the power pack was overhauled and they replaced the hydraulic fluid. But I got, I took maybe a cord out or something, and then replaced it with some fresh 5606, so it made me sleep better at night. But that's how I did it. So I have it completely topped off. I've heard guys flying around with a bottle of that in their back in the baggage compartment, but it's one of those things like if you're having to add hydraulic fluid like that, you got some major issues. So, I don't know. That's how I have it. I have the power pack completely topped off. And Chase, you want to compliment with that? Is there anything you want to add to that? If it blown overboard, if it's too full?
So the one caveat to that is if you do a lot of gear maintenance, like if you overhaul a lot of actuators, there's going to be a ton of air in the system. If you sky high the power pack like I recommend, you're going to have 5606 on the belly when you land, and that's a known thing because when you go gear up, all the air in the actuators that you may not have gotten out during the 25 cycle bleed procedure is going to rush into the power pack quicker than the fluid's leaving the power pack, and it's going to push some fluid out of the vent. The vent's overboard right up under the co-pilot's left foot. So just know that that's going to happen if you do a lot of maintenance. Definitely above the A and add because you want some spare fluid that's going to replace that air. But the first few flights, I wouldn't recommend filling it up. Once you're sure that you got all the air out of your system, top it all the way off. If you've got all the air out of your system, the fluid will leave the power pack quicker than it comes back to the power pack because the pump is pumping it out, and the fluid will go down as the gear comes up. So once you get all the air out of your system, the
you won't kick any more fluid out of the belly. As far as keeping it full, that's going to do a few things for you. If you do happen to start a leak in flight, we recommend a pump light on your panel, somewhere visible, either in the engine monitor, so it triggers one of your engine monitor lights, or a dedicated light on the panel. If the pump comes on in flight more than just the zip to repressurize the system, if it comes on, stays on, the first step is power idle. The next step is gear down. I don't care how fast you're going. I would much rather fix oversped gear doors than you belly your airplane in. Because if you blow an actuator O-ring, having the power pack full, because as soon as the pressure drops, the motor's going to kick on. And if you blow an actuator O-ring out and start pumping fluid overboard, the more fluid in your power pack, the more split seconds you have to get the gear down. This is not a time to be slow. This is not a time to be slow to react. This is not a time to pull the circuit breaker and put the gear handle down and start pumping on the hand pump. This is a time, power idle, gear down now. Because the power pack puts out about 3 times as much volume as the hand pump does. So if you have an open leak in the system, your only shot at getting the gear down is to pump as much fluid as fast as possible.
Okay. Even with the breaker in.
Oh yeah. If you have a gear light, or if you don't have a gear light yet, you need to be listening for the pump. If the pump comes on for more than a zip to repressurize the system in flight, it is power idle, gear down. I don't care if you're doing V&E.
Okay.
That means you either blew the O-ring on the front of the nose gear actuator, blew the O-rings on any of some of your downlock actuators, or blew the piston rod O-ring on your main gear actuators, or worst case scenario, one of the 2 hydraulic lines on your nose gear actuator. If those blow, you're more than likely not getting it down. A piston O-ring is going to have a much smaller leak rate, and the power pack can probably overcome it. It's not going to get up to full 1500 PSI, kick off, and do the whole normal thing, but it'll do enough to get the main gear down. If you blow one of the hydraulic lines on the nose gear,
the wind pressure is not enough to blow down.
You're gonna get the nose gear locked.
Yeah. Okay. Even with those lines blown.
Yeah. If you blow the nose gear lines and the pump kicks on, that is a 1/4-inch hole, and it's going to be pumping in gallons per minute. You're not going to get the main gear down. But as soon as you go gear handle down or leave pressure on the upside, the nose gear is going to fall, and with the wind off the prop, the high energy air off the prop, it's going to fall into the lock.
Okay.
So you're more, unless there's something mechanically broken, which I'll cover in my slide in the nose gear, you're going to have a nose gear.
Okay.
The whole point of power idle gear down is to try and get the mains down. If you catch it early enough and it's a small enough leak, you can overcome it to get the mains down. If you blow one of the main lines on the nose gear actuator, you're going to get the nose gear, and the mains are going to be in trail, and you're going to land main gear up. But that's why it's important to maintain the system, which is what I'm going to cover in my slides.
Okay. Yeah, on the POH, it'll say it's not unusual to see that light come on short period of time, or just on and off.
When you rotate, the strut fully extends and it closes the circuit on your squat switch, you'll see it buzz.
Yeah.
And Mr. Paul New, the 210 specialist of the world, his recommendation is if it's buzzing more than about every 20 minutes in flight, you need to start attacking your gear system with tools.
Okay.
But
I've never seen the light come on, but it said the POH says it's not abnormal to see that light come on and off.
Right.
In cruise.
Right. Which is what I'm saying is if it's, even though it's not abnormal to see it, if it's buzzing more than about 20 minutes to repressurize the system, you've got an internal leak somewhere.
Okay.
Can you
more things to think about.
Hey, you guys can see this, right?
Not well. Closer to your camera. Yeah, check it out, fellas.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so this, I just pulled this dipstick out of the airplane. This is mine, right? So you can kind of see how I run it. It's topped off, like we've talked about. But this is one threat that I've been meaning to talk to. Well, I mentioned it to Scott. So we really haven't been big on it, but we're talking about the finger screen in the hydraulic power pump, and I guess supposedly a lot of them are missing in the field. But thankfully mine has it, and I'll tell you why it's so important that you have this, right? So I was literally doing, when I was servicing the power pack, I was pulling the hydraulic fluid out of the power pack, and this dipstick, what happened was it rotated, and it was really loose, right? So essentially what happened was when I went to go tighten the cap, this unscrewed and it fell down into the power pack.
Oh, geez.
That could have been a fatal. That could have been that could have been a big problem.
Yeah, and so this is brass, and so of course you wouldn't be able to fish it out with a magnet. It's a complete nightmare, right? So thankfully that screen was there, and it kept me out of trouble. So just FYI, if you guys are ever doing that, be careful, because it almost made my day, absolutely ruined my day. So when you're
you have a screen, Mike? You have a screen on your airplane?
I do have a screen because it stopped it. Yep.
Oh man.
Yep.
I know. Okay.
You're
unusual because that you're one of the very few people that has a screen.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And another thing, Chase could talk about this. I don't want to get too off topic here because I don't want to run out of time, but there's also the actual filter on the power pack that no one changes either or inspects. I've talked to my IA. He says he's never done it, but if you look at the maintenance manual, and Chase could probably mention this too, there's actual a filter on the side of the power pack with, I think it's a slotted drive to unscrew it. But a lot of guys don't clean that either. I haven't done it on mine yet. I want to see it to see what it looks like. I would assume it's probably in pretty good shape just because I try my, it's clean and yeah. So, JC, can you compliment it? Can you say anything about that?
Yeah, we're gonna pull the one out of Scott's airplane here after lunch.
Oh, cool. Okay. Awesome. All right. Sorry. Okay. So anyways, I don't want to get too off topic.
You have to drain the pump first?
No, you don't do anything. If you're doing it on the ground, either I don't like to see the tail weighted, because if the Cessna's going to have an in-flight structural failure, it's going to be the tail. There has never been documented a in-flight wing failure of a strut-braced Cessna that didn't have a tail failure first. The wing is built hell for strong. If you're going to have a structural failure, it's going to be the tail. So I don't like seeing the tail weighted. My preferred method is a cherry picker, sling the prop and pick the nose up off the ground. It's physically impossible for the main gear to retract without pressure on it if the airplane's sitting on the main gear. If your down locks in your nose, it's just not worth the risk to me. The down lock should technically hold the nose gear just fine, but I like to get it up off the ground before I do this. You don't have to drain the power pack to pull the pressure screen. You do have to release the pressure. So you'll either electrics off or pull the circuit breaker and take the gear handle and go up and down a few times, and that relieves all the internal pressure of the gear system. And then it's just a flathead screwdriver. You thread it out, and it comes out in a big slug. I'll show you guys all this over in Scott's hangar later. We've already got his airplane on jacks to show you all this.
Mike, we can FaceTime if you want to watch that, or we'll figure out.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah, absolutely.
This is way off topic. We're just way off topic, but you mentioned the tow hook on back. I've seen where guys put a winch in the back of the hangar and they'll use that to tow the plane back in.
Yeah.
And I've heard both ways. Yeah, that's okay. And I've heard no, you're pulling the back of the airplane off.
So there's an AD for the 77 and earlier straight leg 182s for cracking at the 341 bulkhead, which is the furthest tail cone bulkhead.
Okay.
I said 341, 230. Excuse me. I'm thinking of F-16s.
That's a little faster than us.
The 230 bulkhead.
I feel like that kind of guy.
The 230 bulkhead, the furthest aft bulkhead that your fiberglass tail cone bolts to.
Yeah.
That's where your tail tie down ring goes in with a nut. There's an AD for the cracking at the top and also cracking at the bottom. It's a little bit stronger of a bulkhead, but not that much stronger of a bulkhead. I just don't see the benefit of it. If you have electric tug like you're talking about, like Scott has, like I have, you're physically pushing the nose gear further into its locks. Pushing the airplane by the nose, especially hand powered electric tug, you're not going to hurt it.
Yeah.
And
I got a buddy that has the winch, and he just stands out there with the controller. Like, man, it sure looks like it'd be convenient.
I heard like 172s okay doing that, but not 182s. That's what I was
The exception to that would be if you wanted to pay McFarland $2,000 for their tail strike. They have this huge tail strike assembly that ties the 203 bulkhead and the 230 bulkhead together. It's a really cool part, and it gives a lot of structure back there where Cessnas are known to have a weak point. But it's like 40 hours to install and a $2,000 part. But when you add that much structure back there, I would say that it would be an okay thing, but it's still not preferred.
Okay. The other thing to keep in mind, that tail tie down hook is intended for vertical Load, not horizontal load.
So my
They
two,
snap off. I think it's snap off.
my 210 is a former FBI bird, and I'm assuming they tail struck it a lot, but they went through enough of them that they actually had to do a doubler on the tail. So it's not the strongest part of the airplane. Like I said, there's never been a documented in-flight failure of a strut brace Cessna wing. There's been plenty of, and now I'm not trying to scare you. You've got to fly it past V&E. You've got to fly it in a thunderstorm. You got to do something like that. But if you're going to have an in-flight failure, it's going to be in the tail. The tail is the weak part of the structure. So I just don't like adding any more stress by hooking a winch to it and pulling it in the airplane or pulling it in the hangar, especially if you have a big curve like you're talking about. Because then you pull it up to the curb, then the airplane stops. Now you got to keep loading it until it jumps over the curb. And you're just adding a whole lot of stress in that tail cone that it was not designed for.
Okay. Yeah, that's way off topic.
And the early birds have the red box antenna back there in the tail, and they just cut a hole straight through the stringer and everything. And it didn't reinforce. It's how my airplane was. So fortunately, the Diamond Autopilot goes back in there. Actually fixed it. So,
Oh, you're talking about the electric trim, the factory electric trim.
no, the red box, it's an antenna, right? Marker beacon.
You're talking about on the access panel on the bottom of the tail?
No, it's between the two on mine.
I've never seen one that far out. An avionics shop did you an injustice. But I don't want to get off topic.
That's how everything.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. Keep going.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Sorry about
We got
Yeah.
a topic.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's all good. It's I run the Eagle Flight Custom 3 tires with Michelin air stop inner tubes. I do a lot of off-road stuff with the airplane, so that seems to be well for me. They wear well. They're a tough tire, so I know they're expensive, but value, I don't know. Again, it's teach their own how you operate the airplane. If it's a flight school airplane, you just want to burn through, with those Concords or the cheaper tires, it's fine. That's just how I run the airplane. Just FYI, if you run it, and this came from airplanes, if you don't run the correct tire up front with the STC, because they cut the gear doors for the K1G5, it could bind and you could have a gear up situation. And matter of fact, there was a 182 out here in Almani where that happened. And the nose gear wouldn't come down because he weren't running the correct tire. So FYI, for any guys that have that K1G5 STC, make sure you talk to Raphael over at Airplanes so you have the correct tire. So that is a real deal, a real concern. So just FYI. No strut slightly over serviced for me, just because I go into, unimproved strips. The problem with having that is it can lock out the nose steering. So be careful. You can't be too over serviced. But for me, I have it slightly over serviced. So I have a little more compression dampening when I go into unimproved strips. Stand where I want. Fuel, I run the airplane with half tanks just because I want versatility, so I can just pack it, fill it up at last minute, not have any weight and balance issues. Of course, the bad thing about that is it keeps the tanks dry and the PRC, but I fly the airplane so much, I'm not really worried about the fuel not touching the top of the tank. It splashes around when I fly it enough. And I usually have a gallon or two in the aux tanks. My Friday checks, I'll run every Friday. I'll run a Friday check. I'll actuate systems I usually don't actuate. Like, for example, like the auxiliary tanks, just to get the pumps lubricated and running. So every Friday I'll run maybe half a gallon or so through the pumps to keep the pumps happy. And then I'll keep the parking brake off just for obvious reasons. You don't want those, you don't want either the calipers to freeze up, or you don't want the brake pressure to bleed. There was to bleed off and have the airplane start rolling. There was a Mustang here about 6 months ago that the captain decided to set the parking brake, and it rolled downhill and ran right into a brick wall. So, yeah, no good. Oh boy. Yeah.
No chocks?
No chocks.
If
No
he's
chocks.
sitting on the Mustang, he can afford it. Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah. So anyhow, all right. Pre-flight. These are the things that I really look for. Of course, the nose and landing gear. I look at the obvious, concerns on our airplanes. The way I fly my airplane, I want it reliable, right? So nice strong battery, O2's topped off, so it gives me versatility if I need to go somewhere. This is a non-turbocharged airplane, so it doesn't have factory O2, so I run an O2 bottle, which of course has been hydrostatic, and it's all legal. I have a maintenance box that has that has certain things. I carry, when I go down into Mexico, I carry a main landing gear wheel and tire that's built already, because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to find a R182 tire in Gonzaga Bay, Mexico. So I might be able to find a 210 or a Cessna 182 or something like that, but I wouldn't be able to find that. So I have one already built that I could jack. I could jack the airplane up with the on the bottom part of the caliper there, where it's not really touching the caliper, it's kind of touching the knuckle there. I forget what that part would be called. Chase can probably compliment that. But if I had to, I could put a main tire on it. I don't carry a nose, but I definitely carry a main. Radios, that's all set up, and then I run a Starlink in the airplane, and of course paperwork's in order. I'm big on that. Tires, like we talked about, good shape. No nicks, no bald spots. Excuse me, no bald spots, no flat spots. Nicks and prop, again, because I'm always going into unimproved strips, making sure the prop is in good condition, and then leaks, making sure that the engine is tight. There's no red leaks, of which would be, of course, hydraulic fluid, and blue for Hunger low lead. So those are the big things I'm looking for. So that's just me. Starting the airplane, in that this complements the IO 540 configuration. So there's going to be some differences, but a cold engine, the way I start the airplane is everything's full forward. I prime with the auxiliary fuel pump for approximately 3 seconds, and then I turn the fuel pump off. I set the throttle to idle, and then I start cranking. Oh, by the way, mixture's already lean. Then I start to crank and add fuel when attempting to run. On a hot start, this is my technique. I know Scott has a different way of doing it. Hot start, and on these IO 540s, approximately 30 minutes after you shut down, you get that vapor lock, and it's really hard to start. If you shut it down and do a quick turn and start it right back up, it starts no problem. But if you shut it down and you let it sit for approximately 30 minutes, that's when the most problematic for these Lycom's, for me, that I've noticed. Throttle slightly above idle because he needs a little bit of air. Prop full forward, mixture lean, begin to crank, and approximately takes usually about maybe 5 to 6, 7 seconds, and then I'll add mixture when attempting to run and adjust throttle as necessary. Sometimes if there's a lot of vapor lock, I'll tickle the fuel pump on the airplane, and that'll kind of keep the engine happy. So usually starts up pretty quick in that regards. Lean immediately after start. That's kind of like the go-to when it comes to the industry. And then cowl flaps close not to exceed 300 CHG on the ground. Now that's all subjective, right? So a lot of guys, like, probably when it comes to your primary flight instruction, it's like, hey, cowl flaps always open on the ground. I don't believe that. I don't teach that with my students. You set the cowl flaps as necessary. The goal is to get the engine on temp as quick as possible, and keeping the cowl flaps open when it's 10 degrees centigrade out won't do that. It's under temp engine is just as bad as an over temp. So I set the cowl flaps as required. My IO 540 runs pretty cool, so I generally, for the most part, run cowl flaps closed 80% of the time. So my baffling's pretty tight, so I never have an issue. So
we just ran our 300 horse out to the East Coast last week, and it was pretty hot. It was like 90 degrees on the surface or more. And at altitude, like we were cruising at 8,000, I was seeing, with cowl flaps open and closed, about a 10-degree temperature difference on oil temp.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. As a matter of fact, I was doing a search and rescue mission 3 days ago down here in Southern California, and I was down at probably around 500 AGL. And my problem was I was really slow, so I was flaps 10 at about 18 inches, 17 inches, and I was flying around. I saw an oil temp of it started tickling like 240. I was like, oh, that's hot. So I got the nose down to get some oil. Yeah, so I got try to get some air in the back side of the the engine block, because that's where the engine oil cooler in these engines are, and kind of get the deck angle lower. And when I opened the cowl flaps and got that going, it dropped down dramatically. So it definitely does help. Yeah. So
we also run more oil than you do. We run like 8.5 quarts in the summertime, just because I think it helps with cooling too.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that. I was, on these really long flights, I'll add, I'll have 6, but if it's a really long one, I'll bump it up to 7, just so I can compensate for that engine, for that oil burn, if there is any. So
yeah.
On the 540 fuel injected, where is the oil cooler? Is it behind the engine, or because the 78s, it was up in the nose? And
yeah, so
on,
80, yeah, so the Gen 2, that was one of the changes. On this airplane, it's also on the IO540, it's in the back on the right rear, right in front of the co-pilot's like right knee. It's kind of right up against the firewall there.
Yeah.
Airplanes must have changed to that, Mike, because my conversion was done well before yours. I think mine was the second customer airplane, and my cooler's in the front on the pilot side.
I think they just got it because his is an 82. I think they just kept what was from the factory.
Oh, that's possible.
Yeah.
Like a 78 is supposed to be up front. Yours is a 78, and it's up front. His is an 82. It's supposed to be in the back, and it's in the back.
So the 300 horse engine, you've got your oil cooler up front then.
On this one, I do.
No. Yeah. Right.
This is in the back. This is in the back. Mine's in the front.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
And for that reason, I got my number 1 cylinder running a little hot. It's definitely a little hotter than number 2.
I mean, these mods are for these engines, and they kept the same block and just put maybe cylinder heads on, right?
Well, no. That's the reason that the IO540 K1G5, the cross section of it is way bigger than the O540. That's why the nose, the oil sump hangs down. The crank throws much more, and that's why the nose gear can't retract a little. You'll see on mine in the hangar, the nose gear is sticking out. The tire sticks out like this far out the and the upstop pad. It's a whole different deal. So
the 260 horse is essentially the same motor you have.
Yeah,
but injected and turned all at 2,700 RPM versus 2,400. It's different, but essentially the same.
It's very close.
Yeah. But it's got the same oil sump, so the nose gear can retract all the way.
Yep.
Same intake system. It's got the updated case with a standard 2 mag drive versus a dual mag. So that is one nice thing about it. But the 260 is an angle. It's a parallel valve motor. Same sump, same induction, same cylinders, different accessory case, and injected is about the 300 horse, totally different animal. It's an angle valve motor. It's a different case. It's a standard Lycoming oil sump versus the kidney sump that Cessna designed for them. That's why their nose gear can't retract all the way.
Yeah. The 260 and 300, we can talk about that with Raphael tomorrow. They're just two different animals altogether.
Regarding the taxi, I like to. This goes back to your guys' way back in the day. Anyone that's obtained an airman certificate recently, but the ACS talks about brake checks, right? So as soon as you start up, check your brakes. I'm a big fan of a brisk walk per AC 8083. It talks about a slow taxi speed, right? You want to keep the airplane under control, brake failure, hot brakes, and downlock failure. I don't know how, and Chase might be able, I don't want to get too behind here in time wise, but there was a situation out here in the West Coast where they had a downlock failure, it appears, and it folded the gear back. And so I've heard guys say, it would take a tremendous amount of force to get the airplane over center where that would happen. I don't really know. I mean, if you guys want to get into that, all I know is yeah, cool. Okay, I don't want to get too deep into that then, but all I'm saying is like fine. Brisk walk. A nice brisk walk is what you want to do per the FAA. You don't want to be taxiing around super fast. It's just it's inappropriate airmanship. Gives a chance for the engine to warm up. It's important, right? You want to nice warm oil. So people going taxiing super fast out to the run up area to sit there for 10 minutes, right? It's like landing at the airlines. We don't want to land there and be waiting for a gate. We would rather slow the airplane down in the air because the passengers don't know the difference. But they do know the difference when you're sitting on the ramp there waiting for a gate for 20 minutes. So it's kind of the same analogy. Don't taxi super fast to get to your run-up area and sit there.
Wait.
Yeah, exactly. Per 8083, the airplane flying hammock. Don't forget to position the flight controls for wind. Light is appropriate, right? No strobe lights on the ground. I like to run just one taxi light on. Having a super bright airplane on the ground just isn't appropriate. It's rude for the other pilots. Use those lead on, lead off lines, keeps you out of trouble, especially at night, right? I see a lot of guys cutting the corner when it comes to the taxiways. They'll cut the corner and then they'll not see a taxi sign or something else. I flew up to Lone Pine and I was sitting right seat in my airplane. I had a student on the left seat, and Lone Pine is up in the Owens Valley. It's beautiful. It's a really, really pretty airport. And they were doing a tail dragger fly-in, right? So I land in the airplane and I'm sitting right seat. I'm taxiing the airplane, and my student says, "Hey, you see the cone, right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I got it." He's like, "No, the one right here." And there was a cone. And this is just after I had the prop overhauled and the engine topped, the new cylinders on the engine. And I missed this cone. I stopped the airplane. I missed it probably by about 2 feet. And I would have been so upset if I hit that cone. But using the lead on lines, it wouldn't have helped at all, because these knuckleheads, it's probably because they're tail draggers. They don't really care as much for obstacles, but they left this cone right in the middle of the taxiway, and it would have been bad. So I was able to stop the airplane and get out and move it to a safe spot. But just situational awareness, keep it on those lead on lines, lead off lines, center lines. It's just good practice to complement your good airmanship. Takeoff. This is how I fly the airplane. Fuel pump on per the airplane supplement on our airplane. All lights on. Pitot heat. I run mine on because the problem is some guys will forget to put it on in hard IMC when it's cold out. You can have a pitot heat failure, or pitot static failure, I should say, pitot 2 failure. It gets iced over. So that's just part of my runway flow. I turn it on, I turn it off when I exit the runway. So as long as you've got relative wind going across it, you're not going to burn out the element. So cowl flaps, for the most part, generally closed because of how my engine runs. My engine controls are wide open throttle. I check my system instruments and make sure the airspeed is alive. I pause at approximately 27 inches to allow the propeller to get on speed, then advance slowly. You'll hear a lot of guys, shoving the power forward, and it takes, the prop goes over speed for maybe, or I should say slightly over speed, maybe 100 RPM, which is hard on the engine, right? I try to be nice as smooth as possible for my airmanship and also for my passengers, right? The airplane flying handbook talks about an overspeed. They say 10% for 3 seconds is acceptable. That's pretty aggressive. I have 270 RPM for 3 seconds. I would have to get in the nitty gritty on the propeller specifically for the Hartzell. That's what we have. That's what I have on my airplane. But to see 10% over 2,700 for 3 seconds is pretty egregious, but that's what they say. So, and when I'm doing that, I'm making sure the prop is on speed. Generally speaking, I'll see anywhere from 2680 to 27, somewhere in there. I run a JPI 930, so it's when it's flashing red at you, it looks like it's the engine's going to come apart, but it's really just advisory in nature. But it's just kind of the nature of the beast. So. Make sure I have it full forward. Lycoming says, of course, engine roughness, you could back it off. One technique is to do a run up, a full static run up in the run up area. If you're taking off out of a high altitude in the airplane, a high altitude takeoff, we'll say like 10,000 feet or something, you could do a full static run up and try to get it, for best efficient, best power, and set it and use that for takeoff. I have done that. When I go out at a big bear, I'll do a full static run up and I'll lean the mixture out to get best power, and then I'll do a takeoff at that power setting. But generally speaking, lower altitudes, I won't have to do that. So, any questions?
Yeah, I had a comment, Mike, on mine.
Yeah.
You don't see this as much as I do, but when it's hot in the summertime here, particularly, and the oil's thin, I will see a little surging. So, but you're super smooth on the throttle up. If you're on takeoff, if you're smooth on the throttle up, there's not much surge. But if you're aggressive, you're going to see some surge. That it's just a governor thing, I think. And with thin oil, that's the way it goes. So.
Yeah, and I just try to be smooth, right? That's the goal, just to be smooth and just try to keep it tight. I try to get the prop on speed, and I don't want to hammer it on like a whoa when they come back down. It's just,
Right.
I think it's just poor technique. So I'll try to get it to around 20, if I'm at sea level, of course, around 27 inches or so. Once it's at 27 and it's on speed at 20, it's 27 inches and 27 RPM. Then I'll slowly give it the rest of it, the rest of the power. And that seems to keep the power plant happy. So
I thought I had a governor problem. Sent my governor out for overhaul, and it turned out, and if you have a Macaulay governor, that there's I think it's an 8-year service bulletin for the plastic top to be replaced. I had a cracked plastic top and didn't realize it. So you guys want to look at your governors for that purpose.
Yeah, I think mine. When I sent my governor out, it was already complied with. So, but yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Mine was not. So I'm glad I sent it out. I wasn't weird to them.
Got it. I see this a lot in the field when it comes to gear retraction. A lot of guys want to hurry getting the landing gear up. There was a cardiovascular surgeon here based at Cable who I used to work with when my first job was an orderly at San Antonio Hospital here, and his big thing was getting the landing gear up as soon as possible. So back before they overhauled the runway here at Cable, there used to be a big dip. And he used to bring the gear up on the ground. As soon as the squat switch unloaded, the gear sucked up and he destroyed his 421. So just trying to show off. But yeah, the big takeaway on this is just don't rush getting the landing gear up. Airplane Flying Handbook talks about this. Pause, ready to climb, insufficient runway, gear up, tap the brakes if you want to. Don't rush. I personally don't tap the brakes. Some guys do that. To each their own. They eventually slow down on themselves anyways, and the nose wheel stops itself with the scrubber up with the nose gear, so or the wheel well. 2 reasons for that. 1, you want to make sure you have a climb, right? But also 2, engine failure. It takes anywhere, they say 6 to 9 seconds to bring the gear completely all the way up. If you have the gear down and you have an engine failure, that's one less thing to worry about. You can just land straight ahead. So at a 500 feet AGL, the throttle's still open. I'll bring the prop back to 2,400 and I'll set the mixture to 21 to 22 gallons per hour. And then I'll turn the fuel pump off. I might, if it depends on if I'm making a turn or where I am at in the traffic pattern, when I turn that fuel pump off, the engine's still going to run with the engine driven fuel pump. However, if there was a failure, then I would know by having it off. So what I do is I just kind of wait maybe a little bit longer with that, turn the fuel pump off, and then I'll run my climb checklist. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to rush through this, but I just want to get caught up with time. I don't want to be dipping into Chase's time here, but I have a checklist in the airplane, and this seems to work pretty good for me. It's the basic stuff. It keeps me out of trouble. What I've noticed with a lot of students, when the checklist is too convoluted and it's just too long, people don't seem to use them, and you kind of get lost in the checklist. And so I have a basic one here that I've adopted, and I think Scott, are you using this checklist now, Scott?
I am. I've been using yours, but I used it on the ForeFlight on my iPad, so I don't have.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
The laminated hard copy I kind of like. That might be a better idea than ForeFlight.
Yeah, it's just quicker, right? You don't have to keep your head down in the cockpit. So,
we do the call outs for sure, just like that.
Yeah,
I use 2,500 to 24, whatever, same idea.
Yeah, hey, whatever you want to do, top of the green, that seems to.
Yep. I just it quiets it down a lot.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely. One thing that I failed to talk about is what I'll do is I'll have a little supplemental information sheet in the airplane that talks about my passenger brief, taxi brief, departure brief, abnormal triggers, prior to rotation, after rotation, and after rotation with insufficient runway, my emergency procedures. And I'll run through this because I tell you, when you have an engine failure on takeoff and you have that startle effect, your brain will dump all this information until you have it, unless you have it briefed. And so
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'll go through.
I want to copy that.
Great idea. Yeah, and that's what we do at the airlines. Every takeoff, we'll do an emergency brief. Some of my abort triggers: engine failure, fire, loss of control, inability to fly. And then prior to rotation, I'll talk about semi wonders like airplane taxiing by.
That's a great one, Mike. I don't do that then. That's the time to do that.
You're
right.
a separate sheet too, because you're not looking like.
Exactly.
You pull it up, so, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll talk about prior to rotation, what I'll do after rotation with sufficient runway, meaning the gear's still down, right? Because you don't bring the gear up until that's the kind of remind me that there's sufficient runway. And then after rotation with insufficient runway, and I'll talk about the en route stuff, and then I'll brief if all goes well. 400 feet AGL, we'll turn left to head into 180, climb to 4,000 feet. We're on this departure, this frequency, this transponder code, yada yada yada. So that kind of keeps me streamlined versus just going and hoping that it works well. So that's how I do it. So,
see, Mike, you're flying like a pro, man. That's what we all need. That's a great example.
Well, the problem is, and 80% of the guys don't fly every day. So what do you expect, right? I mean, it's like, if I don't fly once a week, I feel soft. And so I can imagine some of the guys, a lot of the GA guys that don't fly every single day and they're not doing it for a living, how they would feel. So it's even that much more important that we fly super. You just got to keep it tight because 1 inch turns into a foot, which turns into an accident. So it's really important. We just got to keep it as tight as we possibly can. So, continue with the climb, mixture lean and climb to yield, rich of peak, not to exceed 380 CHT, and then cow flaps as required. So as I climb, the manifold pressure will drop, which will complement the fuel flow. So I'll lean it out. Cruise, the way I fly the airplane. Once I get to cruise, I'll set my lights. Usually taxi and landing lights are off unless I'm below 10,000 feet. Then I'll fly around with the taxi light on. Cow flap set, CHT not to exceed 380, fuel flow high or low, managed with flaps. So one technique that I do, if my CHTs are around like 390, I'll crack the cow flaps versus managing it with fuel flow. I'd rather move the cow flaps than bring the fuel flows. So I'll manage small changes with cow flaps versus the throttle. If I wanted to save with fuel, I'd rather open the cow flaps than increase the mixture of the fuel. The technique is different, but the outcome is still the same. Trying to keep it below 380. That's where I like to have it. Throttle's still wide open, and then RPM, I'll bring it back to 2350 to kind of slow it down, quiet it down. 2350 for me seems to be a good balance between speed and also quiet. Remember, more RPM, more fuel. Stand by one.
I do the same cruise RPM, 2350. We have the same engine.
Yeah, it seems to be happy with our airplane. So
yeah.
Make sure I like to be at rich of peak, not to exceed 380 CHT. Again, some guys run lean of peak. That's fine. If I want to go really far, I'll do that. But for me, it's always rich of peak. So that's my cruise. Descent. I'll do
quick question, maybe.
Hold on, Mike.
Yeah, quick on the cruise. I've never done it, maybe because I don't know how, and I it'd be dangerous. Do you ever do an in-flight mag check?
No.
I do. Absolutely.
Did four of them on the way here from Georgia.
Yeah, I do it routinely.
That's the best troubleshooting tool you can do for your ignition system.
Maybe when you'd have to, you kind of talk me through the process, because I've just never really figured out how to do it, and I've looked it up.
What kind of engine monitor do you have?
JPI 830.
Okay, so it's worthwhile. If you don't have an engine monitor, it's not worth it.
I got the same one.
There's nothing you can tell from it. If you have an engine monitor, that's the best troubleshooting tool you can do.
Okay.
My airplane. Yeah, my airplane runs pretty well, so I don't get too deep into it. But that definitely sounds. I would love to take a look at that because just to see the general health of the engine. But yeah, for sure. I've heard of guys doing it, but I don't do it. But I have heard of guys doing it, and I would love to see when you guys make a presentation on that. I'd love to see how you guys do it and maybe apply it. Descent checklist. What I'll do is I'll do a brief. Because the last thing you want to do is get to an airport and you're like, oh, where's the FBO at, or like, where do I got to go, or what taxiway is open, or what taxiway is closed. So when I have idle time, I'll start briefing the approach. We'll start briefing where we're going. If we have to go around, in those regards, what I got to do. And then My descent checklist is pretty straightforward. It's just mixture set, light set, seatbelt secure, altimeter set, approach briefs complete, and then run the descent checklist. And then when I'm actually flying the airplane, I'll descend to plan to be at the TPA on speed at 130. So essentially I don't really bring the throttle back until I'm at a point in which I need to slow the airplane down to 130 knots to be in the TPA. So it's wide open in the climb, wide open in cruise, and wide open in the descent. In regards to TPA, a traffic pattern altitude.
Okay.
Yep.
So Mike, like last week we had a couple of speed warnings. Are you push the red line when you're doing that sometimes on the descent?
Yeah, if it's smooth, I'll push it. I'll tickle the red line, no problem. But if it's bumpy, I'll back off. Yep. So I just fly the airplane hard and just fly it wide open. Prop in regards to the descent, I keep it around 2350. If you're trying to get down, you want to speed the airplane up. If you bring the prop way back, the airplane will speed up because there's less drag on it. There's not left forward drag, right? So there's that. You got to keep that in consideration. Mixture, I slowly enrich it for the descent to approximately initial climb setting, and I know on my airplane it's about a ½ inch out from the sub panel. I can see it down there when I'm looking at it. I can see that's kind of where it's at, and then I'll make sure the lights are on. I'm on a nice bright airplane. Landing, I beam my landing point or if I'm doing a straight in, 3 to 5 miles from the threshold, I'll be 130 indicated, gear down, one green, flaps 10. And that's, in this airplane, VLO down is 140. And the VLE is also 140. So I just make it one rotation or one sweep. I go gear down, flaps 10 at 130. And then when I'm at base, I'll do flaps 20 and then the final flaps 30. For me, this airplane is heavy. It's one of the heaviest it's one of the heaviest 540s that Lycoming makes. And I got a bunch of fuel and it's just a heavy airplane. So if it's really heavy, I'll approach the airplane at 75 to 80 knots indicated. If it's a light airplane, I'll be around 70 knots or so. That's with no crosswind or gusts or anything like that. So, that's how I fly the airplane. It seems to be happy. So, if it's really heavy, I'll land the airplane around 75 to 80 knots. If you're not on an IFR approach, the way I do it is 1 mile prior to the final approach fix or final approach point, or 1 dot below glide slope. I'll go gear down, flaps 10, mixtured and enriched, prop as required. I'm not a big fan of bringing the prop full forward. Like a lot of guys will go gumps check, gas undercarriage, mixture, prop full forward, seatbelts. That's fine, but I just don't like flying the airplane around with the props way up top and it's like screaming and it's loud. And I mean, when was the last time you guys you executed either a missed approach or went around? I mean, once every 5 years. It just doesn't. I mean, maybe if you really wanted to. So what I'll do is like if the minimums are down low, I'll bring the prop up to 2,500 just so I have that extra climb performance if need be. And then once I'm leaving the MDA or DA, DH, I'll go flaps full once I see the runway in sight. And that usually works out pretty well. So yeah, that's how I do it in my airplane. So any comments or?
I got one item I want to mention, and Chase, maybe you can have an opinion on this, but Paul New used to tell me that I got it on my panel, B-gump, he wants to hit the brakes to push the fluid down to the pucks again, because in our system, the brake fluid supposedly runs away from the bottom of the gear legs, and it's good to push it back down again. So I hit the brakes when I do my gas undercarriage mixture prop. Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah. It's not as much the fluid running with gravity. It's if your gear is hitting the wheel well in the top in the up position, the first thing it's going to hit is the backside of the caliper. And when it hits the wheel well, it's going to push the caliper against the rotor and push the pucks away. It's not gravity flowing the fluid. It's the wheel well will physically push the calipers, compress the calipers.
Really?
Yeah. And I saw on your airplane yesterday that one of your calipers is hitting.
Yeah, well, we pushed it away a little bit. We made a little ding in there.
But if your calipers are hitting, it'll physically compress the calipers and push all the fluid back to the reservoirs. So when you go gear down, your first press, you may not have brakes. So it's just reset the calipers.
So I do that every time I extend gear. I go brakes first.
Right.
But we took a heat gun and actually bent
that
It was touching.
the fiberglass shell.
Yeah.
Or plastic shell.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
It's also just a good idea to test your brakes.
Yeah.
How much the brake system is dependent on the gear system.
Yeah.
How much it moves and all. It's a good idea just to test to make sure you still have brakes.
Yeah, I got a video at the end of the run, at the end of this the slide slope that'll complement testing your brakes. That unfortunately it worked out okay, but it's pretty it's pretty crazy to see it. I'll show it to you.
the one thing that I do, just one thing different, while I'm in my descent before I get to traffic pattern altitude, I'll go ahead and drop my gear, while I'm still on autopilot, because that's just one less thing in the pattern that I've got to, get the gear down, get the plane cleaned up, get the trim set and all that. All that's got, electric trim. I just find it's a little bit less workload to drop the gear while I'm still in the descent just before I get to the pattern.
Yeah.
And the POH even says to use the gear to help slow the plane down. So, and of course it says below 140, but I never do that. I wait till about 120 before I lower the gear.
We use 120 because your gear doors, the bushings, they wear, right? So we go slower.
So, but I always drop my gear before I ever get to the pattern. I mean, if there's an issue, then I'm not in the pattern and trying to figure out, do I extend, do I get out, I get the gear down and install a lock and call it all good.
Right.
So,
we tend to do the same thing.
Sure. Yeah, dude. Flight whichever. If you got to get the airplane down, or whatever technique. Yeah, that's. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely, I completely agree with that one.
And the other comment I would have is one mile prior to I don't like to wait to the FAF. I like to do it a mile out. So the only thing I'm changing at the FAF is maybe coming back to 12 or 13 inches for the downhill. That's sure. I like to do that too.
Yep. And I left a power setting out of this because we're all flying different airplanes. But yeah, I think trying to think. Yeah, it's like 13 inches somewhere in there. Kind of depends where it's like 3 degrees, maybe not somewhere in there. So yeah.
Yep. We use 12 to 13 depending on the day and how the airplane's loaded.
Cool.
Yep.
Going around, for me, it's full power, flaps 10, pause ready to climb, insufficient runway, gear up or not. You don't have to bring the gear up. People swear that you got to bring the gear up. It's like, it's already down. Leave it down if you want. And then flaps up, climb power is required. So pretty straightforward stuff. Nothing too crazy.
Just for curiosity, how much time do you have in a stock powered R182?
Oh,
he's only had 300. Maybe. No.
At 3,100 pounds with 230 horse, you got to get the gear up to get her climbing. It can
okay, cool. Yeah. Yes, I maybe 50 hours somewhere in there. Okay, yeah, great. That's awesome. Good to know.
We flew ours heavy into Sun and Fun and had traffic jump a customer, and 2 grown men and a bunch of gas. We were at 38. We were 3082 max takeoff. We were right there at gross weight, and we had traffic dive in front of us, dive in front of us at the airport. So we go around, and with flaps 20 and the gear down and everything crammed against the dash, we had them still about 100 foot down. So gear up, clean the drag up.
Wow.
It's a heavy airplane to only have 230, 235.
It is.
Yeah, I got the pleasure of flying my airplane around by myself, 80% of the time, so it's the power is there, On the ground, this one's an important one, land straight ahead on center line, watch those crosswinds. This airplane isn't very forgiving when it comes to crosswind landings. It likes to dart left or right. So make sure you're nice and straight. Make sure the longitudinal axis of the airplane is aligned with the center line of the runway. Okay, that's just airmanship 101. Some airplanes you don't have to do that, and you could just let the gear kind of settle in. It'll pull the airplane when the inertia of the airplane will kind of drive it forward. But this airplane doesn't like to do that, so be careful with that one. Flare, tall nose, right? This airplane's got a really tall nose, and it almost seems like when you don't think you need to flare a little bit more, it seems. I think we all know that. Let the airplane settle prior to brake application. When you're going down the runway, you think, 1/1000th of a second is going to really change a lot. It's not. Just let the airplane settle. The airplane, the airplane flying handbook talks about verifying flap prior to retraction, or just wait. You know, it really depends on how you want to fly the airplane. If the squat twitch is doing its job, you're not going to inadvertently bring the landing gear up. But as we know, that sometimes doesn't work, and guys will do that. So personally, the way I do it, when I land the airplane, I let the airplane settle, verify the flaps, and I'll call it out, say flaps verified, bring the flaps up, let the airplane settle, and execute some aerodynamic braking with the elevator, and just let the airplane kind of settle, and use the tail to slow the airplane down. Be careful in the soft field takeoff landings. Aft control locks will lock out the nose steering. I've had that. I was going out of a dirt strip up in the high desert, and it was sporty because the runway is really short. There's tons of gravel, so I'm trying to protect the prop. I'm trying to get the airplane off the ground as quick as possible. I don't want to. So getting the nose off the ground as quick as possible, it locks out my steering, so I'm below VMCG, but I'm above VMCG, but I'm below VMCA, so the tail isn't working. So it gets really complicated quick. So you really got to essentially point the airplane where you want it to go, and hopefully it stays in that direction, get the power in, and then hopefully get the tail working so you can get the airplane off the ground without having any steering. So you just got to be careful with that. So, yeah, those are what I've noticed on the ground with this airplane. I'm sure you guys have all experienced the same thing too. Is there anything I'm missing?
Yeah, I got two comments, Mike. One is on the arrival touchdown, how the POA says to land tail low, but really to me the objective is to don't hit the nose first. And our nose gear hangs down pretty damn far. So it's not, you can't really flare super nose high because to hit the mains first without hitting the nose, it's kind of like a sight picture. You like you say, it's kind of tall. The nose is kind of tall, and it doesn't leave a lot of room for, I never hit the tail, but it seems like you could if you're a little pitch happy.
Yeah, I've never dragged the tail. I've dragged the tail on my 150, but never on the 182. So it seems like I have pretty good balance. So I don't know. Yeah.
The other thing is we don't touch anything until we get off the runway. That is, we don't touch the flat, nothing.
That's fine. That's what the airplane flying handbook says. I completely agree.
Okay.
I second that.
Nope. A lot. That's a bonanza problem mostly.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. I get it. I don't even. I completely understand.
One other comment on descent, just because I'm about 60 hours into my airplane, I find that it slips really good on final. And it just got to keep it clean and then flare it at the end, but it slips really nice.
Yeah. No, I've noticed that. There was a forum. I think I read something online about a guy doing it. So I'm gonna try to see how well this thing slips, and it slips well. So absolutely.
Yeah, that was with, I think I had 30 degrees of flaps in.
Be careful. Be careful with more than 20. It's not a great idea.
Yeah, there's that little clause in the AFM says avoid flaps, avoid slips with flaps extended. That's always like, hey, it's always like avoid doesn't mean shall, and it's advisory in nature and this and that. But you have to be careful about it because it'll blank out the tail and it gets a little sporty. So yeah.
And that's the thing. With the early models that have the 40 degrees, we even put the flap gap seals on our straight leg, and you would still lose pitch authority and flare. Just because that big flap will blank out your elevator nicely when you're down, just when you don't want it to.
Right.
Essentially, all the R182s have 40 degrees of flaps. The 83 and up, they reduced it to 38.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I am okay. Yeah. All right. So I was wrong then. Okay, I thought I had 30 on my airplane. Okay, very well. Good to know.
That's right. Anyway, it's just a huge flap.
Yeah.
And that elevator, when you look straight on, when the flap's all the way down, it's just about covered up by the flap. And when you need to be holding our nose wheel up, I've had it slammed down on my straight leg. Never on this one, because I don't like using all those flaps. It's not. And the POH even says don't use any more flaps than you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike is great. I got to say, the first time he's landed my airplane, throws the full 40 down, he greases it the first time, and I said, man, this guy's pro. Man, I'm not that good, man. You're like, you got something going on that most of us don't have.
you just fly every day. You know what I mean? It's like it's just that's the way it goes. You want to get good at something. You just gotta fly. But
anyway,
so
we're all not as gifted. We're all not as gifted.
Do you guys see this video right here?
Started it, yep.
Okay. So this is back in 2006. I'm flying the airplane. It's a Citation. It's like 3 a.m. going into San Diego Brown. It's single pilot, and the airplane, I picked the airplane up from a Cessna service center in Sacramento. And it's the first flight. We did brakes, and we did tires. We NDT'd the rims, everything. They went through the airplane with the brakes. The brake system was acting up, so they completely redid the brakes. And I didn't know the passengers was filming this. I thought they were all asleep. There was actually 2 people on board that I picked up coming back to San Diego. This is landing 8 left at San Diego Brown, 3 a.m, CJ3, single pilot. I'm flying the airplane. And again, this was recorded by a passenger. Let me see if I can make it play. And let me know if you have sound. Do you have sound, Scott?
Yes, sound.
Okay.
I can't hear anything.
You can't?
No. I can hear. You got it turned up?
Yeah, let's see here.
Sorry. Oh.
No sound?
No.
Darn it. Well, okay. The visuals we'll probably get it. Well, there are justice. They'll probably get the point across. So right about here, I go flight idle, start the flare, try to make a nice landing, and right there, both brakes lock up.
Oh,
so you can see the runway edge lights coming right off the runway.
No.
Nothing you could do.
Nothing.
Oh,
That happened fast, man. What was it, like 2 seconds?
Yeah, I mean it seems it's slow motion, right? It seems but yeah, that was right about there, and the left one locked up a little earlier than the right, so it pulled left. You could see right about here. You could see my head. I got my rudder and I got the aileron trying to bury it to keep it on centerline, which is over here. But of course, the slower I go, the less everything's effective. So, and the brakes are locked up.
That's like a tail dragger with the brakes locking.
Yeah, and the great thing is the airplane actually missed both runway edge lights, so I didn't strike the airplane at all. There was actually no damage to the airplane.
Wow!
When it went off into the dirt, no fog ingestion, nothing.
How were your passengers?
they're probably awake.
Yeah. The guy taking the video.
Yeah. And so, and actually, like a month prior, if you guys remember, do you remember that Citation that went into Santa Monica and crashed into the hangars?
Yeah.
You guys remember that?
No.
Okay, so a dad and a son landed their CJ3 at Santa Monica, and Cessna. I never saw the preliminary on it, but essentially what happened was there was a similar incident where the brakes locked up, and for a while there, it was unknown reasons why it went into a hangar, but they were killed. And thankfully there's no ditch there or a hangar, but Cessna, because it wasn't an incident, it wasn't an accident, it was technically an event. They dispatched the MRU, the mobile repair unit, the truck, and it was fixed by 9 a.m. They called me up. I said, hey, so I just picked the airplane up from Sacramento. This is what happened. They're like, hey, we have a truck on our way. They were there by 5:30 in the morning. They gave me a $500 voucher for a hotel room and food. And they said, get out of here, because they knew they screwed up. And they fixed the airplane, and that was it. So I don't know whatever came of it. But it was somehow, some way, the brakes locked up. And essentially, I have some pictures somewhere, but it carved, or it ground the wheel all the way almost to the axle, and it was they never said exactly what happened or why it did it, but yeah, it could have been way worse than it was. So
I've seen that happen on an F-22 Raptor in Savannah.
Yikes.
Ground all the way, ground the axle half into everything was a half circle, half a tire, half a wheel, half an axle, half a brake.
yeah, pretty wild.
Wow.
So
Well,
yeah,
exciting.
that's all I got, guys. Yeah, let me I'll go back to that last pitch. That was with the how I fly the airplane. This was for the with the Mexican Marines. I'm like best friends with the Mexican Marines down